thing that can quench your thirst. And that makes a lot of sense to us here this evening because, you know, the water is made up of almost 75% water. And Karen and I, when we have traveled to access water, and of course, we know that we are mostly made up of water. Our bodies are 60% water. As a baby, they're almost 75% water. And the brain said it, you know, over 85%. Now, Karen says mine's probably over 90. I think she thinks I'm waterlogged or something. I don't really know what she's trying to say with that, but that's some of the things that we talk about. But let's talk about some facts about water before we get into hydrotherapy. Did you know that 75% of Americans are chronically dehydrated? That means, statistically, that somewhere in this room, somebody's dehydrated. No volunteers, Bobby. You're not allowed to volunteer. Now, you know, there's some interesting ways that we can check to see if we're dehydrated. You know, as a young boy, my grandfather could take his skin and he could roll it like that, and it would stay up, and it would stay up high and for a long period of time. And I'm like, I thought that was the coolest and the funniest thing. He'd do it and he'd laugh. I didn't know, guess what, that is a sign of dehydration. You know, we have a thirst mechanism as well that will tell you, like, when you're getting thirsty, right? But the thing is that if you're chronically dehydrated, it may not be working properly. So just something to think about here. And by the way, something else that might be a sign could be what? A headache. Something as simple as a headache could be a sign that you're dehydrated. Now, let's make this practical. If that was the case, if you had a headache and it was caused from dehydration, what might help you to relieve that headache? Drinking water. Listen, Gary, this is not rocket science, is it? No, this is stuff that is very simple, but just trying some water. Now, I've got some stories that I'll be able to tell through here, but I can tell you my son used to get a lot of headaches. But what we discovered was he was dehydrated. He just wasn't getting enough water for the amount of water that he was getting rid of. So he was staying dehydrated. Once we kept him with more water, the headache started dissipating. Now, how do we make that practical? Does anyone in here possibly know somebody who suffers from headaches? If you do, guess what? You do? This is something that you could share with them that may be able to help relieve them. If I were to be telling people, say, listen, there are different ways that we can check for having headaches. This is what I would tell you to be the first thing to try because it's so simple, right? And there's virtually no side effects to that. And by the way, we find that the lack of water in our bodies is the number one reason that we get fatigue. You know anybody struggling that's tired all the time? Well, then maybe, Cheryl, maybe just try some water. Your water bottle. Bobby, you need to get this lady a water bottle right now. You see, it can be this simple. I remember when I was in school, anybody can remember back that far? As us in this room, right? It's not as easy as it seems, right? But you know, when we were in school, there used to be a time where you'd watch and the kids would put their head on the desk. You remember that?
After lunch.
Huh? Right after lunch, right? And we're all passed out. What if we'd had some more water? What if somebody's child is having a challenge in school right now? This is something that we could help show. Maybe somebody at work is struggling with having, fatigue at work. You could offer. This is why we're told that the health message is the right hand to the gospel, you see, because there are simple things that we can do that we can help people. So keeping your eye open, paying attention to these kind of things, and something just as simple as saying, listen, I had a headache the other day. I tried some water, and guess what? My headache went away. How hard is that to share with somebody something like that, right? Is that something we can do? Okay, how about this? 8 to 10 glasses of water a day relieve back and joint pain for many people. Know anybody who's suffering from joint pain? You know, there you go. All right, you already have the bottle of water, so now you just have to consume the bottle of water. This is serious because many people are doing surgeries today on their joints because they're having so much pain. They may have to have the surgery, but guess what? It doesn't hurt to try some water first, right? So that's just something just to think about. So 8 to 10 glasses of water a day. All right, I had this question the other day. I bet you guys this. Quiz question number 1. How many ounces is in a glass of water, Gary?
Depends on the size glass you use.
No, it's not, Cheryl. Don't. Hey, that's right. I don't need any hecklers. I'm having a hard enough time speaking as it is.
8.
8, that's correct.
Speaking without a translator.
Oh, I see my translators here, so I can go ahead and start now, right?
Fact checker too. If he says something wrong, I'll make sure you get the right information. Do not worry.
This is true. We were one time we were sitting at 3BN and we were sitting next to Karen Batchelor, and Doug was up speaking, and he said something, and she started correcting him, and Karen poked me and said, see.
Everybody's got to have a fact checker. That's right.
So, and finally in our facts this evening, a 2% drop in body water can, guess what? Cause memory loss. Karen was talking about maybe having some memory loss yesterday. So now, to my translator, I might say, maybe you want to drink a little bit more water.
I just finished one.
Okay. I see everybody's chugging now in our age group. And when we hear memory loss, we're all got that water up going, right? So these are some things. But do you see how we can take just a simple glass of water and present Jesus to the world? And that's why the health message is so important. So what is exactly hydrotherapy? Well, very simply put, it is the treatment of disease through the use of water. And it can be done both internally and externally. So drinking water would be obviously a way that we would keep hydrated, right? Internally in doing hydrotherapy. And of course, we're going to talk about more things like that we can do externally for hydrotherapy. Now, for you to understand, most of you probably get this, but there are 3 stages that water come in, right? Water is in a liquid. That's the one we most know. That's like water. And of course, it comes in solid, like an ice, right? And then we have a gas or vapor or steam, okay? So these are the 3. Now, what we're going to do this evening is that we're going to go over and we're going to look at, well, I should say the next couple of nights, we're going to actually look and practice. We're going to practice this ourselves, guys, using all 3 of these stages, okay? So I said over the next couple of nights, the ice is actually going to be on Thursday night, right?
Yeah.
So, but we're going to actually practice these and use them and see if there's different ways that they can help. Now, why would we use water? Well, first off, water is very common. It's like I said, it covers 75% of the earth. Water is usually fairly obtainable to get. But also, water is one of the best conductors that we know of keeping hot and cold. So it's very good for that. And by the way, I've got the word cheap up here. But the word is inexpensive. The word is inexpensive. Now, as Seventh-day Adventists, we like that word, right? If it's inexpensive, yeah, see? There's some people that know us out there as a, how should we say this nicely, a frugal people, right? So water is, now, does water cost? Yes, it does. But Cheryl, if it was too expensive for you to run the water, could you come down here to the church and get some and help somebody? See, so we could, that's sneaking water. That's right or wrong? It's probably wrong to sneak water, isn't it? So we probably shouldn't do that because you shouldn't take the water. Yeah, you shouldn't go out there and borrow their hose, right, Bobby? So anyhow, oh, I'm borrowing the hose. Never mind. I better tone that down just a little. But anyway, so these are some of the reasons that we'd want to use water. Now, hydrotherapy has been used down through the ages through almost every culture. You know, you've heard of the Roman hot tubs, right? They've used it. And did you know in Babylon that it was actually, if you didn't take a bath, like it was against the law? I mean, they used hydrotherapy. Yeah. You got a question?
No.
Okay.
I was fixing my...
I thought she's trying to distract me up here, and I'm not going to let her do it. All right, Dave? So, but here's the thing. It's been used in all these cultures. Can you give me an example of it being used way back in the Bible? Can anybody tell me of a story maybe that they can remember where hydrotherapy was used? Captain Naaman, right? Can somebody fill me in on this story, kind of what happened? There was a little maid, right? And what did she do?
She told her mistress that there was a prophet in Israel that could cure her husband.
That's right. And so but what he had to do was go to the prophet, right? And the prophet was going to tell him that he was going to have to do what?
Wash in the Jordan 7 times.
7 times, right? 7 times. So he dipped 6 times. Now, what did he have? Does anybody remember? He had leprosy, right? That's pretty serious, right? So he dips in the River Jordan 6 times, comes up, he still got leprosy, right? But he goes down that 7th time and comes up, and what happens? He's clean, right? Listen to this. Volume 9 testimony says, when in faith the human agent does all he can to combat disease using simple methods of treatment that God has provided, his efforts will be blessed by God. You see, it is not the water that does the healing. God is the one who does the healing, amen? But this is a method or a means in which God uses in order for us to get healing. And God chooses the simple things. Now, let's go a little farther or come closer in history. Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, used hydrotherapy to treat things such as ulcers and fevers. And he did it also to help with when there had been like surgical or medical disorders. So he used hydrotherapy in many, many ways. Now, this brings us up to the 1800s. So now we're in Europe, and there was this young man here, Vincent Priesness. Now, he was an Austrian farmer, but he was born to very, very poor parents, okay? Karen, I need you to keep an eye on the time for me. Somebody, I need to know when it's going to be like 8 o'clock because I need to wrap this down for our next class. Now, so he's there, and his family was very poor. Now, when he was just a young man, he observed this deer. And this deer, Gary, was hobbling like this. But this deer found a brook. And this brook was cool water. And so the deer goes down, and he soaks that leg into the water. And then he gets up, and then the deer hops off. Now, Vincent thinks to himself, he says, I'll bet you that he comes back tomorrow night. So what he does is he comes back tomorrow night, the next night, and he's waiting there, and sure enough, the deer comes back. And the deer goes back down into the water, soaks the leg, and then comes back out. Now, he does this for like 2 weeks. But at the end of 2 weeks, the deer, Debbie, instead of limping out, he jumps out of the water, no longer limping. When he observes this, he says, I wonder how this would work. Now, it wasn't too long after this to where, guess what? He's in an accident. He's splitting some wood, and the wood pile falls on him, and the doctors tell him, guess what? You're going to die. And in fact, if you don't die, you're going to be so mangled that you're never really going to be able to walk or move again. So they sent him home to die. I don't know exactly how, but he was able to take some old ragged shirts and rip them up a little bit and put them in the cool water and wrap them around his body. And within a period of a few months, he was completely healed. Now, many people from this point forward, well, I back up one second. At this point, after he's healed, he starts, when his animals have problems, to start working with his animals, right? And as this starts progressing and working, then he goes ahead and he starts practicing on other people. Before he passed away, he had treated rich and poor from all four corners of the earth. And so the information that he had, it went down through to this next gentleman down here, Sebastian Neep. Anybody heard of Sebastian Neep? Now, he was a Catholic priest, okay? And so he also was interested in this homeopathic type of medicine. And so he started practicing using some of Vincent Priest's material, and he came up with something what was called the Neep cure. By the way, he also wrote many books on this, and he had, I think it was 12 hospitals in the city where that people would come to. Now, Karen and I had a very interesting thing happen just a month or two ago. In fact, when we were out in Wyoming, this is actually in Gardner, Montana. And my daughter's with us, and she says, they got this strange thing in here called a Neep walk. And I said, they got a Neep walk? And she's like, yeah. I'm not like I get excited. And she says, why are you excited? I says, because I talk about Sebastian Neep in my presentation. I want to show you what I saw in here that made it pretty interesting to me. Can anybody read that? How many times do you walk around? 7. What? Captain Naaman, did Captain Naaman dip 7 times? Very interesting to me that you walk, now this is a Catholic gentleman, right? And you walk around 7 times. But what you would do is this. So this is the actual Neep walk here. And by the way, the scenery was absolutely magnificent there. We had a beautiful time. So we sat into a hot pool of water. And when we got out of that water, we would come over to this walkway here. This water's very hot, and so it's about ankle deep, right? And so we walk around in this water, and then when you come right out, you come back into this side, which is, guess what? Cold water. And you would circle that 7 times, and then you would run over to this pool. Well, not run, because you might fall and bang your head, right? That's illegal in New Jersey, so we don't want to do that. So anyway, they're there at this pool, and then you would dip into that, and it was cool water. And that's considered 1 revolution, right? So
60 degrees cold.
So,
And the hot water that you were in is about 100, what was it, 104?
it was closer to 108.
Yeah, it was almost 108. So we were 108, then you do the walk 7 times, and then you jump in the ice cold pool.
Now, while that was fun,
It was fun.
I'm going to tell you that there were a lot of people in there, none of which go to this church. And I'm not referring to Tom's River. I'm just saying to a Christian, or maybe some of them are Christians. I'm not saying they're not, but most of them are probably not of our faith. Can I say that? These people were soaking this up, no pun intended. And they are the people that, guess what? We're supposed to be ministering to. They have a desire for this information. And so anyhow, I wanted to put that in for that reason right there. Which brings us now to John Harvey Kellogg. Now, John Harvey Kellogg comes around in the 1850s, right? Now, he was a contemporary of both Vincent Priestness and Sebastian Neep. And so with their European influence, he built what we know as the Battle Creek Sanitarium. Now, he got a lot of his information from these guys. And so he did his own research and started writing his own books and started his own hydrotherapy treatments. Now, I want to tell you something that the 3 of these gentlemen have in common. Guess what they all practice? Lifestyle. They all practice what we call the 8 laws of health. Did you know that? They were all vegetarians. They all believed in good nutrition, good exercise, the whole gamut. And so what they realized is that, guess what? That this helps to build toward that goal. So hydrotherapy and the laws of health are definitely combinable, okay? Now, Dr. Kellogg and the Spirit of Prophecy gives us a very interesting phrase that we're going to understand about hydrotherapy. And it is that perfect circulation equals perfect health. Now, we're going to find out that hydrotherapy and massage that we're going to be talking about, guess what they both do? They increase your circulation, okay? So, with that in mind, I want you to think about this for a second. In 1918, do you guys know what happened? Spanish flu, right? Now listen to this statement, Spirit Prophecy tells us. Water treatments, wisely and skillfully given, may be the means of saving many lives. There were two institutions in the United States, Loma Linda University and Washington Adventist College, thank you, hospital. This is my fact checker, we're good. And if you had the Spanish flu, and if you were to somehow or another be able to drag yourself into that hospital, if you were able to walk yourself in, not be carried in on a gurney, you walked back out. And it was the only place in the United States this was happening. Now, this is very important. You understand people are dying. What's the problem that we have currently? COVID, right? Very similar in nature as this Spanish flu was. Now, this is a treatment room. Anybody seen something like this before? This is called, now I'm going to try to say this. Peter, it's going to be hard for me. It's called a Mackay. Spelled Mackay. It's spelled M-A-Q-I-I. This, when we were in Alaska, is somebody's steam room. I had the privilege of being able to be there. And once you got inside, there was a place right here where you could sit and you were to bathe. But this was a steam room. Now imagine this little bitty room, and it's got a 55-gallon drum heating it up. They got rocks on top. He has a water bucket here, and what he would do is he had a long ladle, and he'd take the hot water, and he'd spray it real low over the rocks, because if you spray it high, it's popping up, right? So you don't want to do that. So he's spraying it down nice and low, gets nice and steamy, so you can't even see in there. And then he had cold water in there, so he could help cool down a little bit, and he had some wormwood in there. I can prove I was actually there. Now, I will tell you this is the G-rated version. In Alaska, when you do this, you are. Because after you get hot, you run out into the snow to cool down.
That's why I did it. Oh, and girls and guys go separate.
Yes, they do.
Clear on that, okay.
Now, the reason I brought that up was because, and I want to back that up just for a second, is because this town where we were at in Alaska, this town died in 1918 from the Spanish flu. What if we would have had those types of treatment places that we had serving and helping those people? Karen and I actually went to that part of town. The way that story tells to us is that all of the adults died. The children lived, survived, but the adults died. Do you think these people were scared when COVID came around? Absolutely, because they did not know any better. Yet they had some things, if they would have properly used them, if they'd have had that education, could have helped them. Now, so let's talk about education. At Wildwood, we have some nice high technology. In fact, these are old pictures now. I have not been able to get the new pictures, but they have a state-of-the-art hydrotherapy place there now. That's wonderful because hydrotherapy is so beneficial. The thing is that you can do that, But guess what? We can do it as simple as this. You can have the high dollar stuff, and it works, but this will work it too. Remember, because who performs the miracle? But we need to be wise and be skilled in order to do this. And that's why we're doing this evening, that we're going over this. And so that reminds me, of course, this is here. In fact, it's pretty close to the same position, isn't it?
It's, except the other floor is different.
That's the old floor.
Yeah.
That's right. And here we were practicing and setting up for the health fair, right? So when you practice, and this is the reason I put this picture in, so when you practice here, you learn how to do this, okay? And so tonight, instead of me telling you about this, we're going to practice this. How's that sound? Does that sound good? Okay? Now, that leads me to tell you that there's more people to care about. We want to, Mrs. White has, and I can't do that in this presentation, but she has a story about the berries. If you don't know the story about the berries, you should look it up. Okay, because it's really, what it does is it talks about what I'm explaining here is that first you start at home, right, in your evangelism process, meaning you need to start at home, right? But then you can go out to your communities, right? You can leave the wagon in little ways. You can go out and spread your efforts once you've learned these things. And then you can maybe even go to farther places. Karen and I had the opportunity. Here we are in India. We had set up a health fair in the middle of a town. Story's very interesting because guess what? This was a Hindu holiday. This is a Hindu temple. And we asked them, would you like for us? Oh, the Americans are here, right? So they had us come out. So we went out and we realized pretty quick that we couldn't do weights and height measurements out in the dirt. So what did we do? Well, we moved into the temple, right? So Karen and I like to say, it's very interesting. God has taken us to a part where we have actually been to India. We ministered to people on a Hindu holiday, and we actually went into the temple. And guess what? We were more popular than the Hindu program was. They actually came to us over the program.
Lines were lined up.
Isn't that an amazing experience? Would you guys like to experience something like that? I mean, listen, God has blessed us with this. Listen, when we left here 7 years ago, we had no earthly idea what was going to happen to us. But I can tell you we have been blessed beyond measure. Now, let's bring it back home a little bit. This is to plant a bug in your ear. You do with this what you want, because listen, this is done very seldom, but it was done here. This picture is taken in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, and in Berkeley Springs they had a treatment room. Now it doesn't belong to the church, and the reason it doesn't belong to the church is because the church can't own it because of liabilities. We know well about liabilities here in New Jersey, right? So you have to understand that they're not straightly affiliated with the church, but they are directly connected to the church, and they are the church members. See that they have, by the way, Berkeley Springs was, guess what? It was the first spa in the United States. Do you know another one, by the way? Can anybody give me another spa place in the United States? Because there's lots of them around the country. Pick one.
Hot Springs.
Hot Springs there. Do you know that they were doing these treatments in Hot Springs? Karen and I was there until like the early 60s. Right? They were doing these as a hospital because they had seen what had happened in the past and were using them. Now, so let's talk about a logical question here. Why don't they use them today?
I was going to say, why did they stop?
Okay, let's answer that question. Give me some answers. Somebody give me some answers. Help me. You can't answer yet. Anybody can tell me? Well, let's start by asking you another question. When they were using these, based upon the experiences we've seen before, do you think that it was probably working?
Yes.
So do you think it stopped working?
No.
Okay, so we can rule out that it probably was working, right, Robert?
I think there's interference from the established medical community.
Okay, so now we have, guess what? You talked about water costing a little bit of money. Did you know, listen, I don't even have a current statistic for this, but years ago, I know that Americans were spending over $3.4 trillion a year in medication. it's big money. It's not a little money, it's big money. So when I'm talking about this, guess what? This can't compete because guess what? If you get better and you're not having to pay anybody anything, nobody's making any money. Now, I'm not saying Karen and I, and she said this, and I'm going to tell you again, we are not anti-allopathic medicine. And in fact, we believe there's a time and a place for it, okay? But we also know that if you do what God's asked you to do, guess what? You may not end up in that position to begin with, okay? So anyhow, we were told that in every city where there is a church, there is a place where treatment should be given, able to be given. And she goes on to say that it doesn't matter what it looks like. It could be elementary or even rude. And it makes me think of that McKay that I saw in Alaska. You can use whatever God has given you to work with. How am I doing on time?
7:38.
Oh, I got plenty of time. I'll be done ahead of time. So, how does water affect us? How does hydrotherapy work? So what happens is when you apply water to the skin, that what happens is when you put hot water there, it speeds up the flow of the blood. And then when you apply cold water, it slows it down. Now, studies have shown us that there are optimal times in this. And what that shows us is that for 3 minutes, if you run hot water on your body, that it's going to speed that circulation up. But after 3 minutes, it starts planing off. Okay? So 3 minutes is about the max you want to do. And then it shows us just the opposite. For the cold, it shows us that after 30 seconds, you're starting to not usually get that effect of slowing down anymore. Okay? So when you're doing what we're calling a contrast, and not all hydrotherapy is a contrast, but for the ones that are, this is how it is working. So here's the effects that you're going to get when you use hot and cold exchanges. It's going to, first off, it's going to increase your circulation, right? And so we know that I can't dance. I have no mobility at all to dance. It's just a terrible thing. I can't sing. I can't dance. So anyway, so it increases our circulation, but then guess what? It helps to equalize that blood flow through the body. Many people have, guess what? They have congestion around their organs, right? That's where it's blocking up. And so what it will do is to help to open up that highway, so to speak, okay? And so that's what it's going to do. And then because it does that it is going to, guess what? It is going to increase your lysosomes. Now, lysosomes are what kill the bacteria, okay? So lysosomes are good. Now, and after that, to complete this whole process, what it does is when you have this into an isolated area, it causes the white blood cells to come out and say, oh, there's an emergency here. I need to go solve the problem. So it's giving your body the tools in order to, guess what? To heal itself. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? You know, I forgot, and getting long-winded here, I wanted Karen to tell a story about her friend, she told you that, and the Spanish flu.
Do you want me,
Can
if you don't have time, do you want me to wait till tomorrow?
I think we have time right now.
Okay, I can. Fine. Do you want me to look in here, or do you guys need me up?
Well, I'll tell you, why don't you let me tell, because I got the mic on. I can tell the story. You can correct me when I'm wrong.
Okay. We'll see how it goes.
If I miss one little spot, she will be sure to make sure that I get it in. Because I'm more of an overview and she's more mechanical detail. It's not funny. It is funny, isn't it? It's almost that way. That's almost a universal thing, isn't it, Bhaskar? So what happened was Karen gets a call from this lady that we had been to her and her husband's church in Tennessee. And we had done a hydrotherapy class. And so she calls Karen and she says, listen, my husband and myself both have COVID right now. And, you know, I'd like to know how to do these hydrotherapy treatments on him.
Because they went to the hospital and they said,
I haven't got there yet. Okay. It's tough, Bobby. It really is. So the reason that she had called Karen, now that I've been, told I have to add this part to the story in, is that they had been to the hospital, and the hospital had sent them home. The problem was that his oxygen levels was already into the low 80s. So she says to Karen, what do you have for me? And Karen says to her, she says, I can tell you about the fomentations, but I think you need to take him to another doctor. His oxygen is too low. He needs more help than what we can give right now. So the lady takes her husband back to the hospital, to a different hospital this time. Now they check his oxygen, and at this point it's in the upper 70s. He's going downhill quick. They admit him to the hospital. I don't know in the story, he ends up in ICU, and he ends up on a ventilator. This hospital, though, they believed in a couple of different things, which was very odd for a hospital. Number one, they believed that since she had COVID, and he had COVID, it was okay if she stayed. They felt like with her being there, that he would actually benefit better if she was actually there. Many of us in this room would say, that ain't so dumb. And then, on top of that, what was the other one?
They were proactive in
Oh yeah, they were proactive in treating, and they had used, before he went onto the vent, they had tried like ivermectin and stuff like this. But ivermectin, that usually only works on the front side, not on the back side. It wasn't helpful for him in this particular case. And so he's there on the ventilator, and they tell this lady, you might as well go ahead and start making your arrangements. He's not going to be around very long. And she said, and they said to her, listen, just get the affairs in order. And she called Karen and said, I need to do these treatments. So Karen tells her some things. And this lady happened to have, because she'd been staying in the hospital for a few days, she had a rice cooker there so she could boil water. So she went to the nurse's station, got some towels, and she goes over to the ice machine and she grabs some ice, and she starts doing these hydrotherapy treatments there in the ICU with him on the ventilator. And the nurse just said, excuse me, what are you doing? She said, oh, I'm doing hydrotherapy treatments. They said, okay.
Wow.
Strangest hospital I ever heard of. You know that doesn't exist here, right? Because they've been
They're only an hour away from my house. I said, Ron, if I ever go down, you take me to Sweetwater.
Now, she started applying these and praying, right? And I believe prayer is the first thing here. The next day he was 50% better. And the next day he was off the vent. He's at home and alive today because of hydrotherapy. This is something that we can use to help people. Now, I want to tell you another good story real quick. My son, many of you all know Daniel, was after we started doing this, Daniel came to the house and he had a really sore throat. Now, I know it was serious, Gary. You know why I know? Because the boy didn't eat anything. And when boys are 13 and 14 years old, there's nothing left in the house, right, Dave? I mean, they're gobbling it down. You guys know that, right? Because you guys were doing it, right? Just a couple of years ago. And so I knew he was really pretty sick. I said, Daniel, do you care if I make a guinea pig out of you? He says, what do you mean? I says, I'll take you to the doctor, but give me 24 hours to try hydrotherapy first. He said, okay, I'll try it. It was good because he didn't have a driver's license. So, I mean, it's like I was kind of forcing him to play my hand. But so we did several things. We did some contrast showers. We're going to talk about that here in just a second when we go to the next class. We did some steam inhalation. We're going to do that tomorrow evening. and we did a heating compress, a throat compress. We'll do that also tomorrow evening as well. And so we practiced and did these 3 things. And so when he did the steam inhalation, we actually used some essential oils, and we put in there and let him try those. And the next morning when he woke up, he says, I can't believe it. He said, my throat is better. Now, it's okay that it helped him to get better, but the story really takes an interesting turn, because what happened is that Daniel is getting ready for his 8th grade graduation a few months down the road. And he gets up, and you know how the kids do their accolades for mom and dad, right? He gets up front and he says, my dad did this strange thing on me I'd never heard of before called hydrotherapy. And he said, and it worked. Now, that must have made an impression on his young mind. This was something that was important to him. And I remember, because now when he starts to go when they go on their school and they go on these places overseas, you know, where they're going, mission trips, he calls and says, hey, Dad, somebody's sick. What can I do to help them? You see, this makes an impression on people. And again, this is why this is so important. But here's the key. If I had not believed, and if I had not practiced, do you think God could have blessed it? If you guys want to know if this works, when Karen and I leave, you guys need to practice it. You need to see for yourself. Taste and see that I am good, says God. This stuff works. God's given it to us, and if God's given it to us, it works. So, I'm just saying for the record that you might want to consider, when you have an ailment, when you have a sickness, to try to help someone, okay? See, and practice on yourself. See if this can actually work for you. So some of the basics that we kind of go over in our class is the Russian steam bath. Gary's asked me the big question. Why is it called the Russian steam bath? What's the answer?
Russians invented it.
The answer is I don't know the answer to that, Gary. I don't know. So on your quiz, when it says, why is it called a Russian steam bath, you can write, I don't know, okay? You guys are ready for your quiz, right? Okay, then we're going to do ice massage, and we'll go over each of these individually.
May I read this? A Russian steam bath is a type of steam sauna that's usually heated in a stove, an old tradition existing in Russia for centuries. Steam bathing is considered to be good for relaxation, blah, 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 blah. So that's why. That's why it's called the Russian steam bath. I know we looked it up once, because somebody else asked us the same question.
Well, we're not cooking it up in the oven.
No,
But anyhow,
still called the Russian steam bath.
fomentations. Now, fomentations are a bit more complex, so you won't get me for those, you'll get Karen, okay, when we're doing fomentations, because they're a little bit more but those are very, very useful for a lot of very, very serious issues. In fact, we did fomentations as part of our regimen when Karen and I got COVID. I didn't do the fomentations, I wasn't that sick, but with her having asthma, she was, and her oxygen was down to like 92. Actually got down to the,
89.
yeah, at one point. And we were like on the border. Do we go to the hospital here? You know, if it had gotten any lower, we were like ready to pack the car and go. But we said, we want to try we want to try His ways first and see if they'll work. Contrast showers, we're going to talk about that next. Hot foot bath, we're going to do that this evening. And steam inhalation, we're going to do tomorrow night. Now you can see this was in Ecuador. They built a very nice, very high-tech, using an umbrella and making a nice weight thing for steam. We're going to do something more simple, something more practical that when you go home, you can use. And that's another reason for hydrotherapy. I remember one of the churches that we went to, we carry all these big cases, and one of them was either mismarked or something. I don't know how it happened.
It was Montero's church when he was in Long Branch. It was the Portuguese,
Okay.
the Brazilian church.
So we didn't have the hydrotherapy box. I didn't have my equipment, right? And so I just went rummaging through the kitchen and found things that I could use to make it work. This can be very, very simple and something that you can use your mind to do. So having said that, that's going to be our introduction for hydrotherapy. And our next class, we'll stand up and stretch for a second. And then we'll start our practical class, okay?
And you, yeah, 8 extra minutes.
Okay, good, perfect.
I have a question.
Yes.
All right, the man that was in the hospital, his wife, okay, how did she apply the ice cubes and the hot thing?
Well, I will let Karen address that, but because Karen is,
You know, a bed,
right.
yeah.
But she's typically, what she's going to do is use the towels and just apply the hot.
I'm going to teach the fomentations to the back and chest. So that's what I'm going to teach tomorrow night. And so there's the technique that it's called cold mitten friction. What you do is you take the towel, you get it cold in an ice bucket, rinse it out, and then you just do it on the chest for 30 seconds. Okay, around the chest. It's not like you're pouring it to him. She did to him, yeah. Exactly what Ron did for me when I had COVID.
Right.
So you do the hot first for the 3 minutes, and then you do the cold mitten friction for the 30 seconds. And then you do that, and she did that like multiple exchanges, and his vitals, because his vitals were plummeting, like a complete turnaround. And right after she started doing it. It is a miracle story. And we tell this every church we teach hydrotherapy, we tell that story.
So, all right, we'll reconvene in just a couple of minutes then. And I want to we need to get some hot water up here and going.
I say our government does that, but they call
Peter's making sure we're not crazy.
Thanks, Lisa. He's gonna do demo. Do you need a chair?
I got everything. I'm good.
He's gonna demo, so we're gonna demo it.
We're not just demoing, we're practicing. You guys are going to be doing the.
So not everybody, you can't do everybody every treatment, so don't like rotation.
All right. I'm excited here. This should be hopefully a fun class. It's not going to just be me talking. It's going to be all of us participating. We're probably not all going to be able to do all of the different ones, but if you see one, if you think that you want to be involved in, then that's the one I would be involved in, okay? And so tonight we're going to be going over the contrast bath and a contrast shower. We're not doing contrast showers here, all right? So. But now everybody
If
can.
you really want the cold part, I can do that for you.
So what we can do though is everybody can go home and actually do that tonight and be part of the quiz, right? That you actually went home and you get that's 30% of your grade.
I'll do it in the morning.
Yeah, well,
I don't do it at night. In the morning.
No, because if you do it at night, it's going to actually give you some energy boost, so it might keep you from going to sleep. Now I have an interesting story. That I was telling the Sabbath, where were we talking? And I was talking about how I was staying with these nice people, and they were very, well, let's just say that they were well put together. The gentleman had been the president of an Adventist college in Peru. In fact, he was the first president for their college. And then he was a pastor at or teaching seminary at Andrews University. He wrote some books, and we're staying at these people's house. Now, I'm as Southern as they can be. Like I have to check, like Karen has to go over and make sure my words are spelled right because I miss all the vowels, and they look funny when they got 4 letters in the word and they're supposed to be 7, right? So Karen has to go through and check these things. Now, we're next door to this couple. I mean, like they're in this room and we're in this room right across the hall. And I start laughing. Karen says, "Why are you laughing?" I said, "Because do you know what this guy is doing currently for his current position?" She's like, "What?" I said, "He is a professor of linguistics at Harvard University. And God has called me to speak in front of him. Isn't that funny?" But God was merciful. He called the gentleman to go somewhere else the next morning, and I was relieved.
he had an emergency that Sabbath, and he had to go. I said, "I'm sorry, I'm going to miss your presentation." And we were like,
But that wasn't the part of the story I wanted to tell. The part of the story I wanted to tell was that evening I was developing a sore throat. And I had to speak the next morning. And so what I did was the contrast shower. We're going to get in and we're going to talk about some of these. But this is something that you can go home. Contrast showers are one of those nice things because you can actually do it by itself. Anyway, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's start with this presentation. I've got a couple of slides to show you before we get into this. Ministry of Healing, page 237, in healing and in sickness. Pure water is one of heaven's choicest blessings. Its proper use promotes health. It is the beverage which God has provided to quench the thirst of animals and men. Remember, Gary, we talked about that? Drunk freely, it helps to supply the necessities of the system and assists nature to resist disease. You see, hydrotherapy is very important. Many have never learned by experience the beneficial effects of the proper use of water, and they are afraid of it. People are afraid of water. Come on now. Is anybody in this room afraid of water?
No.
Actually, you know, my mom was afraid of drowning. You know.
Afraid of water, cold water.
Oh, stop, Gary. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. On this camera right here, I'm going to tell you, I know for a fact, a few years ago, you probably had to do some cold water treatments without your consent, right, when you was in that military? So I'm not buying that you're afraid of it.
Man up, Gary.
Man up, Gary. This is a man's man, and y'all's, I really respect Gary. I'll tell you what, he served and done a wonderful job for our country. Let's see, water treatments are not appreciated as they should be, and to apply them skillfully requires work that many are unwilling to perform. But none should feel excused for ignorance or indifference on this subject. There are many ways in which water can be applied to relieve pain and to check disease. All, how many is that now? All should become intelligent to its use and simple home treatments. Mothers especially should know how to care for their families in both health and in sickness.
Good, daddy's excused. It's good, daddy's excused.
No, daddy's not excused.
Mothers especially, but doesn't leave out
It
say
doesn't say
fathers.
it doesn't say mother's old.
Right.
Baskar, I'm going to tell you a secret. We're outnumbered in this room right now, so let's keep that down a little bit, okay?
Technically, no, but you have the right idea.
Listen, if it's 50-50 or 70-30, even in our favor, we're still outnumbered. So, I mean, you know, listen, it's just the way life rolls. So let's go straight into this now. Let's talk about the contrast bath and the contrast shower. So by definition, it's an immersion of the body part, which alternately in hot and cold water. The hot and cold water may be applied with cloths to the body areas that can be easily immersed in water. The blood vessels then dilate. So we talked about this. I'm not going to go into that part. But so what this is saying is that you're going to take an area of the body and you're going to find something. So let's just say, for example, let's just say that I probably pushed a button here. Yeah, let's back up. That you have a hand that's hurting, right? Maybe arthritis or something, okay? And so what you could do, we got a bucket right here. So you sound like you may be a volunteer for this, okay? So what we're going to do is when we do this, we're going to have you to stick your hand into this water. Now this will be a hot water bucket. Listen, somebody actually did this. It was pretty cool. I wish I had that. But they had red and blue buckets. That way you could see one's hot and one's cold. So that was kind of nice too. But listen, I just got I don't know where Karen got these someplace cheap. I know because you know that's what we do as missionaries, right? We just go with the least expensive thing that we can. So anyway, we're going to go through and we'll put that hand in. So what I want to have is I'll not right now, but I'm going to let you volunteer. But then I'm going to have somebody actually to help assist you with the treatment. So if Debbie wants to do it, I don't know, but we'll get somebody. Now, so that's what we're going to do. Now, in the contrast shower, it's going to be the same thing, but this way you can do your whole body. And so what you're going to do is you're going to turn your shower on to about as hot as you can stand it, okay? So listen, optimally, we're looking at maybe starting out at about 108 degrees, okay? And you can go somewhere up to about 115 degrees, okay? So you can go very, very hot. Question always comes to me, but that's too hot for me. Well, if it's too hot and you can't do it, well, then you can't do it. So therefore, you want to do as hot as you can physically stand.
Not on your head.
No, not on your head. You're doing around. And you will see as we're doing this that we protect the head. Because a lot of times we are actually heating the body up. We don't want to heat the head up. That's just one of the, but we'll talk about that as we go along. So when do we have a student talking?
You asked me a question.
Bad student. I'm going to put her in a corner or something. I don't know what to do. I may have to separate you two if y'all going to act like this. Now, anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and I'm sorry, I'm in a contrast shower right now, and you're going to do this for 3 minutes, right? The best way to do that is just simply to rotate around, right? And just do this. Karen's, what is it? Well, that's when you do cold water. Because when you turn, now you want to go as cold as you can go as well too, okay? So when she's doing the cold's for 30 seconds. She says, what is it, the Lord's Prayer, right?
No, that's when I wash my hands.
Oh, awesome.
When I have you know how they say do 20 seconds? I do, every time I wash my hands, I say the Lord's Prayer.
Okay.
People say, oh, you can do happy birthday. I'm like, I'm praying, I'm not doing that. So anyway.
But yeah, so that's what.
But because cold was never my favorite part. But you do get used to it, just so you know. The more you do it, the more you're used to it, the colder you can go, and it doesn't even bother you. But I have the shower head here, and I count to 7 on the front, then I turn, count to 7 on the side, turn, count to 7 on the back, count to 7 on the side. So I do that, and then I figured by the time I'm rotating, I'm getting the extra couple of seconds that I need.
The cold.
Yeah, the cold.
Yeah.
So I figured if I can count 1,002, 1,003, 1,000, it's really not that bad. And so you can do that, and it's really, the exchange is not, you don't feel it as bad as if you were just staying there twice, like 30 seconds, So.
And so, yeah, but it's important. Now listen, when at the Lifestyle Center, if you were near that contrast shower that we had a picture of in the last thing, if you were near that, and they may say, like, for example, the cold is coming, and if somebody like my dad was in there, you might hear them all the way down the hallway.
Yeah, because they're always like, the cold is coming. They always like let them know, like, cold is coming.
Listen, it's not exciting, but the results are amazing. So, listen, we can have a lot of fun with it, but really and truly, you need to be able to take it as hot as you can. Now, let's go through first off some indications. Why would we do this? Okay, so we could do this would be treating like sprains, strains, and other muscle and joint issues.
This is for the bath, right? Your contrast bath?
Yeah, for the contrast bath, okay? And then, of course, now for sprains and stuff, that's going to be, not if it initially happened, because if it's in the first 24 hours, what would we probably use? Can anybody tell me? For a sprain or a break? Ice. You want to use ice in the first 24 hours, okay? So, we're going to be doing the ice treatment. I'll make sure everybody gets to do the ice treatment because everybody enjoys ice, right? So we'll make sure that happens real good. But this is good for like healing fractures. It's good for arthritis. This is good for headaches. So if you have someone who's struggling with headaches, this is also something that you could do. Now I'm going to tell you my preferred, first off, remember I'm telling you we would drink water first. But then secondly, then we would probably do what I'm going to do later, which is the hot foot bath. And I'll explain why I like that a little bit better. Okay? And then for edema, it's good for that. And it's good for also circulation. Everything that you're going to find in here that we're doing, you're going to find that it's good for circulation. All of these treatments are good for circulation. Now, here's the thing. There's some reasons why we wouldn't want to do this. Okay? Now, when we talk about high temperatures, Karen mentioned this yesterday. If you're diabetic, right, and you're dealing with neuropathy, you don't need to be doing a high temperature because it will affect, guess what, the nerve endings. I argued in class for hours over this because I'm like, 104 won't hurt you. Because guess what? You won't burn at 104, right? In other words, if you don't have diabetes and you can handle 104, and if I have diabetes, I'm still not going to burn. You understand what I'm saying? So in my mind, but what they were explaining was that the nerve endings are damaged, and what you will do is actually cause more damage to those nerve endings. So what do you do? What you do is in all hydrotherapy treatments, if you're dealing with hot and cold, you would want for that water temperature to be around 102, maybe 100, so anywhere from 100 to 102. That's your hot temperature. And again, you don't want to use it on that low end. But I want to tell you, at the Lifestyle Center, where Karen and I have been a part of for years, people come in with diabetes, with neuropathy all the time, and they're treating them, and guess what? Many of them are going home starting to reverse that neuropathy, because it takes a long time to reverse the neuropathy. Most everybody who comes in there with type 2 diabetes, even if they came in, we had one gentleman on an insulin pump, right? None of this stuff were they having to use. But it takes a while to fully reverse that damage done to those nerves. But it can be done.
75% of the people in 11 days live with no medication. And diabetes.
Too late for my mother.
Yes, and it was for mine. I have a great testimony about my mom and that, but I think we did that a couple of years ago when I was here, but it's really remarkable how that works. All right, so someone dealing with, like say for cancer, right? Hydrotherapy is excellent for cancer, but it needs to know, you need to know how to administer it. Remember, she talks about being wise about it. I'm going to tell you for purposes, none of us in this room, including myself or Karen, should be doing hydrotherapy on anyone who knows that they have cancer or suspects that they have cancer. Because when it increases that circulation and that blood flow, guess what? Your body parts get better, but so the cancer grows. So a skilled physician who is trained in hydrotherapy and a person who's given a treatment, right? A coach who's doing this treatment also should be trained in knowing how to deliver those types of therapies. It really bothers.
Those are extremely high temperature, like the fever baths, which are like 115 degrees or higher, and they're submersed and for as long as, so because they're so extreme, it's better than if you're practicing hydrotherapy and you know that. So we don't obviously teach that here in this class because this is something that we wouldn't expect or hope that you would try to attempt.
And in fact, I would say, I would use a stronger language. I'm going to tell you that you don't do it. I'm just saying straight up don't. And the reason is, when we're doing these treatments, what are we trying to do? We're trying to help people, right? Jesus' method was to help people. It really bothers me when people come out, especially in our line of work, thinking that they have all the answers to everything that ever happened on this earth, and all of a sudden you're treating people, you don't know what you're doing, and you've made them sicker or worse than they started off. That's not God's plan. So I want to highly caution. And what does that do? It gives God a bad name. It gives this a bad name. So we want to understand our role in this, and our role is to simply learn how to do things to help us at home for things that are within our control, okay? You wouldn't want to do these if somebody has a tendency to like bleed or hemorrhage or something like that. You wouldn't want to do this if somebody has like a real low blood pressure, okay? Because you could actually cause them. I have seen when people are doing these treatments and their blood pressure is already a little bit low, that they might get a little unstable. And I've seen this. So because of this, when we are doing these treatments here this evening, I'm going to show you a treatment, but it's not going to be like, for example, if we were looking to get the water to 108, I'm looking to get the water to 100 degrees. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'm not trying to do an actual full treatment. And the reason is because once you do a treatment, you always want to go lay down and rest. We don't have that capability here, right? I mean, I guess I'm going to go lay on a pew, but that's not our intent. I want you to see the principle of it, and then you can go, and when you can go home and practice, and if you're a person who knows that you may have an issue here, you should have someone working with you. You shouldn't be trying to say, I heard about this and I'm going to go as hard as I can, as hard as I can. Next thing you know, you're out on the floor, because it does work. It actually does what it's supposed to do. All right. So we talked about the 3 minutes and the 30 seconds. We talked about doing 3 to 5 cycles when you're doing a contrast shower or a contrast bath, either way. And the cycles where you do 3 minutes of hot, 30 seconds of cold. 30 minutes of hot, 30 seconds cold. That is taking one cycle. So you can do 3 to 5 cycles in doing this, okay?
So they're one right after the other.
Yes. And so we were just in Wyoming, and I was doing the hot foot bath, and a little girl came up. She said she wanted to do it, and her grandma wanted to help out. And I got the picture and something we just did, but anyway, because I wanted to show people. This was really cool. But this little girl was like 10 years old, and they didn't say anything. So we got the water warm, but we didn't make it like super hot as a little girl. So we don't, a younger person or an older person also has more, right? They have more susceptibility to temperature changes. So obviously we didn't want to do super changes here. Grandmother says the next day, now we just did a partial treatment. We just did just a little something. And the grandmother says, this little girl went home last night, and her mother recognized that, guess what? The issues that she's been struggling with, asthma, I don't know, it was something, allergies.
She had bad allergies.
She had allergies. She says she didn't have them last night. The grandmother was there learning like here, but the mother, guess what? She was like going a different direction, you know what I'm saying? Like but her mother recognized that this was working. This is why this is, and it wasn't even a real treatment. It was just amazing.
The mother was anti-Christianity, anti-church, and so when the little girl goes home, and what they learned in their class like this in church, it made such an impact on their, on their family. They said, well, the mother was like, she couldn't deny that the daughter was better.
Evangelizing.
Amen.
Yeah. And that's the purpose. The purpose is people ask me a lot of times, they're like, why don't we use like acupuncture? Why don't we use homeopathy? Why don't we use, reflexology? Why don't we use some of these things? And the direct answer is there can be some relief in those, but it's not bringing glory to God. The person is looking at it. Because this is such a simple treatment, the only answer that you can give is that it comes from God. This brings God to glory, and this is what we're told that we should be doing. Now, before we actually do that, I want to show you just a couple of things with some items that we would use up here. Now, Karen and I come from different worlds, right? We're the north and the south, right? So we're always bickering and things like this. We're not really.
Who won the war?
So when I'm preparing, one of the things that you want to do is make sure like your floor is in good shape here, and we're going to keep it dry. So here I have, because Karen is always working, in the kitchen, I have a tablecloth, right? It's real good to, why are you laughing? You're laughing at me. So I'm going to put this down here. Now this is not for this, but this is going to come into play here in a minute. Guys, we're manly men, right, Pete? We don't use tablecloths. We go to the paint department and we get ourselves some plastic that we can throw away when we're done. Now you do notice I'm using the tablecloth, but that's beside the point, all right? But this is something that you could use, and you can actually use this as well when we talk about the other program. I will explain that. All right. Again, Karen's a chef, so we're talking about thermometers. Well, she likes to use one of these things, right? You know what that is right here? Bobby, have I ever gotten in trouble, you think, with Karen? I don't want this thing right here too close to me in the water, you know what I'm saying? I don't trust her, I might, it might be some things here. Now, in this one, I think I win the war because I went to the pool department and I got this nice handy dandy guy right here. Can't hurt nobody here, right?
Cheaper too.
And it's less expensive, and so it's the whole thing here. Now,
It's like north versus south.
That's what says
You two are going to have to behave. All right, so a lot of times you're going to be pinning things together because we're going to use a lot of towels and stuff like that in here. So Karen likes safety pins. Me. Chip bag clip. What do you think about that? Pretty nice, huh? It works sometimes. I've got some other ideas too that I want to share with you in another segment. Clothespins work fine. Listen, this is nothing but a plastic glorified clothespin. That's what that is right there. So, but the reason that I actually am showing you this, it's kind of fun, but it's to show you you got things around the house that you can use. You know what I'm saying? Some towels and some sheets and you're good to go, okay? All right, so now let's see here. Let's bring a chair over here.
All right, Joanne, we're gonna fix your footprint.
And I need my two volunteers here, my lovely assistants. Let's. Let me slide this over here just a little bit. Not that we're gonna need that. I'm gonna just move this out of the way for a minute. We don't need this here. Okay. Come on, Debbie. Peter, can you hold that for me for a minute? Don't let it go nowhere. Okay.
Will it be on that side?
No, you can be there.
Okay, quiz time. You're getting ready to do this therapy. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to explain to her why you're doing this, okay?
Don't worry, you'll be fine. We're going to be praying for you.
Now remember she had told you that she had arthritis in her hand, right? Or her hand was hurting at any level.
Right.
So what we're going to do is we're going to do a 3-minute contrast of hot water with your hand and then 30 seconds of cold. Okay? So of course, now when you do this, you want to do this in a room that is not ventilated. You want it to not have a draft in it, okay? Because a person could get sick. Now, we got some water back here, but what I wanted to do was I want to ask my medical professionals, if I don't have a thermometer to check my water, what would I use?
Your fingers.
No.
Your elbow.
There we go. Who said elbow? Good job. Good job, elbow.
And then she recanted.
Okay. So what we're going to do before she gets in, I got some. So this is just room temperature water. Well, it's a little warmer than room temperature. It was hot that I could get out of the thing. Now we just need it to go high enough. Why are you sticking your fingers in there?
Testing it.
Oh, you can't test it yet. I'm not finished yet. We're not finished. And you wouldn't use your fingers. Okay. Now this is going to be our warm water.
Okay.
Are you gonna warm it up?
Just stay with me.
Okay. Like it's not warm.
Oh. All right. So here we got some cooler water, okay, that we brought up.
Right.
So we're going to put some cool water in here.
I need that bucket when you're done.
Now, we don't need it extremely high, but what we need it to do is it needs to go higher than what we're trying to work with. Okay, now, I happen to have here, let me get that for a second. I have, and they're already starting to melt here because they didn't have a great amount of time, but we have some ice here. I'll just bring these over here. Debbie, I'll let you help me with this. You can ice this right on up here. We're not going to get too cold. You don't have to worry about that. Just go ahead and put that in there. All right, I'll just let you throw those in. They're starting to melt. I only got to heat them up for about an hour today. Now, this is a great little guy here. You guys see one of these things? They're just a little pot right here, right?
Yeah.
So what I want you to do is we're going to take and we're going to get that thermometer.
This one?
No, not the one that we poke anybody. That's correct. No, not that thing. No, don't you do that. We're not hurting nobody here. And we're going to see the water temperature here. And it shows it's going up. Well, it's about 88, right? 90, maybe at 90?
94 almost.
94. We're getting close.
Almost. Oh, we're getting to 100 now. 98.
We're not going to need much hot water.
Yeah, we're at like 100 now.
Okay, we're at 100. So what I want to do is I want to make a barrier so that I can, and I want to pour close here. Now what I want to do is just pour a little water in and then just swirl it around with my fingers. And it went up to about, what, 102?
Yeah,
All right, let's go up to about 100. Do you have diabetes?
no.
Okay.
Not that I know of, but I could have cancer. I don't know of either.
All right, let's get this up to,
To kill me now.
oh, stop. Okay.
Now, what is it?
Now what we're going to do is the next thing you're going to need is some type of device to have your time. So I happen to have my handy dandy phone right here. Now what we want to do before we start, now she's kind of already told you what you're going to do here, right? Why you're doing this. You're not too nervous, right? She's keeping an eye on this. So what you want to do now is just have a nice little prayer with her and put your hand on her. And, oh, we always ask first, is it all right if we pray with you?
Yes, it is.
If a person would decline the prayer, what would we do?
Pray to yourself.
There you go. Do you know what that's called, by the way? That's intercessory prayer, right? And it works. Anyway, so go ahead and you can, once you pray, we'll start to put her hand in and start her up.
Should I hold her hand?
You can, well, however you guys want to do this. It depends on how you guys know each other.
I always hold hands.
Okay.
Gracious and merciful Father in heaven, we are here today to learn about all the health messages that Karen and Ronald are giving us. Just because Jesus was the one who would walk around and heal other people, and it was like evangelizing. And we trust in Jesus. We trust in you, the Lord, to make everything that we're going to do right here, give it a lesson that we will never forget. As always, I pray through Jesus Christ Almighty.
Amen.
Amen. So now you can put her hand in, or she can put her hand in. We'll just hit the button, and we're going to do this for like 3 minutes. Now, obviously, to make it just as comfortable as it not. Are we high enough up on your wrist?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
One of the things that you will observe as they're doing this is that when the temperatures are extreme enough, if you're like, say, doing from 108 and going down to 60, 70 to 60 or something, especially in the hand, and when you'll start to watch the skin color start to change colors, right? Because it'll be drawing the blood to the surface. So depending on the person's blood type, it'll be more like the color that you will see as it comes out from them. Some other things to talk about while we're doing this. It doesn't hurt, does it?
Not at all.
Some things that we could talk about would be maybe like sanitation. Yes.
What do you mean, depending on the person's blood type?
Well, what I'm saying is some people look more red, some people have a more yellow tint, and some people have a little bit more of a bluish tint. Well, their blood. Well, it's not the skin; it's the actual. Yeah, like you're more yellow and I'm more red. You can see that I'm more red. Okay, skin tone. Okay, excuse me. Now, so little some things like this where you can take and just open these up, and so that way, when we're finished, we would clean all this up. If a person has something like an open wound, we wouldn't want to do this, right? I have to state the obvious just because that's what we do. If a person's unconscious, you don't do this, right? There are certain things that you would think that we would know, but you just have to explain them anyway, right? Okay, now we're coming in. That's already been 2 minutes. We're coming in now for the coming down the stretch here, okay? And so when you're doing this, it's always good to be like, so you could do this on your own.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's always good, especially when you're doing these things, if you're doing them actually as a treatment where you're getting the water temperature up and elevated, it's always better to do this with someone. That way that you don't have an issue. Because even if you're doing like a contrast shower, which is this, but doing your whole body, but when you're doing this, guess what? Okay, we got 15 seconds left. You will, so we'll stop this in just a second. I got a 10-second countdown. And go ahead and stop and switch. Take this hand, put it into here. Now, what is our temperature? Now, while she's putting her hand into here and we're starting this, what I want to know is what's the temperature here?
Is it like
It says
108 or 6?
109.
It's 109? Okay. So what we could do here, we can do the same exchange again, but we might even want to add a little bit of hot water. Was it too hot for you? So maybe we could add in a little bit of hot water.
Right.
But I can't do the timer and do that at the same time.
Right.
But so if Bascar's running to get it real quick. And then we will stop. And just before you put your hand in there, Bascar, come over here and just put a little bit of water in there. And, oh, come on, Bascar. This isn't medication. There you go. Stop. That's good. And we're just going to mix that around a little bit. All right. And now we're going to switch over to here again.
Okay.
And we're going to reset this and start this again. Okay. So let's talk about some things while we're doing this. Any questions while we're in this process right now? Is this something you guys think that you can use? Do you think you can try this?
Yeah, I think I can try this.
Just to relax after work or something.
Yeah.
You know, it's great for stress relief. By the way, so this and massage. Now, by the way, so hydrotherapy and massage can be used in conjunction with each other to help with the same problems. Also, like for example, she's doing this. There are other things that we could do. For an example, we may want to do like an ice massage for her as well. So you can use this in conjunction with another hydrotherapy treatment. Okay? So there are different things that you can do, and you can do them simultaneously because guess what? They're not going to hurt you.
Right.
Okay? So we can do these as many times here. 3 to 5 times. Now, where are we at now on our temperature? What are we looking at now?
Getting up there, huh? Or no? Not really?
Yeah, 109.
Okay.
I think my hand cooled it off.
Well, your hand will cool. So automatically, when she's, because her hand was cool,
Right.
this is why, so let's see here. When you're doing like the hot foot bath, a lot of people have asked me, well, what about using the little foot massager thing? They're great because it's actually giving the circulation, but I'm still going to tell you, I would not recommend using them because as you talk about cooling down the water here, that water cools down very quick when the little air bubbles are coming up. You can feel it like within a matter of like a minute. You know, you started and your feet were feeling so good, and now they're almost like they're cold, you know what I'm saying? So,
I've done that.
okay, we're running down to a minute here.
Are you comfortable with this?
It could be a little bit higher.
A jetted tub works very good. Obviously, circulation, the air circulation makes it better. The negative that you have is that again you have to continue to add more hot water. On the next exchange, I want to tell you about another interesting story that happened to us not too terribly long ago. In fact, it was at the place in Berkeley Springs, at that exact building where Karen was at. So we're running down now into the last half minute here. Now, you can see, is this complicated?
No.
This is not complicated, right? All right. But my water heater man left. We're running down to 15, 13 seconds here now. And this time when she puts her water in, because it really has not elevated any, let's try to keep it at around, okay, so now you're going to stop and move your hand.
Like 110?
Mm-hmm. And so now while she's doing that, and of course obviously you want to create a barrier between you and her. There you go. So you can do this when you're doing the hot foot bath as well. You can move their feet over to the side. When My son keeps trying to call me. He must have heard me talking about him. Well, listen, you've had your 15 seconds, so we're good there?
We're good?
I actually went...
30 seconds.
Oh, well, I fell down on the job. I was over here.
Switch it over?
Yeah, you can go ahead and switch over now. And then reset and start this.
Good when it's hot water.
The sad news for you is this. When you are doing this, you want to end in cold.
Oh.
I was just going to ask you that. What you should.
Most times, most people that do this recommend that you end on cold.
Okay.
Is what it closes
That's the
down.
full cycle.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
almost like when you're doing massage and you're coming down and you're going very lightly. It's letting your body know we're coming to the end.
Right. That makes sense.
Karen, so we're in Berkeley Springs, and Karen fell down the stairs, twisted her ankle,
Yeah,
and she was having to do a cooking class.
My knee, I went right down the stairs.
We had we did this with her foot with round buckets like that, a little bit bigger than that. We was in a snowstorm, so we went and got the snow for the ice. For the ice.
To put in the water for the cold water.
That was a good.
When we did this 4 times a day, and she had to speak the next day. She had a boot. She was able to make it through. She had multiple fractures.
No, not fractures. I had a sprained foot, sprained ankle, and sprained knee. So I had this whole leg was like, and we were like aggressive hydrotherapy, and I'm like, Lord, please, I can't stand. I was having to do a cooking class. And so the doctor says, I'll give you a boot. But I had no pain. No pain whatsoever. Once we started the hydrotherapy, I had no pain.
So
And
what
sprains can be nasty with pain, just so you know.
So Ron, what temperature should the cold be, roughly?
Well, if you do cold water and throw some ice in there, you're okay. If you want to go really, really low, the colder you want to go, obviously for the person. But I'm going to tell you, like there was a gentleman that we know that had been doing this for years and years, and it was pretty much just ice for him. Like he would just put his foot in like almost solid ice. I mean, and his skin color would be like you could tell exactly where his leg went to, because that's where everything stopped. And it's interesting because you can see that it does that, and then it just kind of stops. So for a person, obviously as cold as they can stand, it would be my answer. So you start, and you can make this colder. So like this right here, if that wasn't too cold for her, we could add more ice and make it colder, right? Because the more extreme you get, the better results you're going to get. Okay? Great question.
Were you in pain tonight, like
I was in pain when I was sitting
when you
there.
were sitting there?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and we are getting ready to stop in 4, 3, 2, 1. Go ahead and take your hand out and put it in the cold water.
Okay.
And we're going for 30 seconds now. Isn't that fun? Isn't the water?
Is it after this?
We're just going to do 3 exchanges because we don't have enough time.
Right.
But she could go home and continue this, right? I mean, you got 2 buckets at home, right? And so pots, there you go. Anything like that works.
Yeah.
Mixing. And so, and that's the beautiful part of this, that you can come, all right, and you are done. And here's you a towel that you can dry your hand off with.
Thank you. Thanks, Dad. Look at her. She's a great assistant.
How does it feel?
Put her feet in the
Like, yeah,
mixing
good.
bowl, then she
Yeah,
puts some
yeah.
beans into
I will call you back in a minute.
I'm gonna do it like just before we have potluck.
There we go.
So next time we do the both hands.
Yeah, you know why? Because this one too, yeah, that's where I have the arthritis.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Now Karen's also going to talk about another pain reliever that works real good for the arthritis as well. So sometimes you can use these things and
We're going to make a pain salve that is really effective with arthritis.
all right. So for time's sake, we're going to go ahead and start the hot foot bath. Well, that's plenty of time. We'll be all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay down a piece of plastic on the floor. You want to, most times you're in a house, if you were in the kitchen and you felt like you were pretty clean, I guess, and like you have a towel or, a floor that you can hand on there, So let's pull this over just a hair to the middle so it looks a little better. Oh, you gonna do it? Are you gonna do are you the one gonna do the?
I'm helping us, whoever is going to go.
Okay, so we need a volunteer now for the hot foot bath. You're gonna have to take your socks and shoes off for this. Any takers? Going once, going to, and listen, if you guys don't want to do it, we'll do a mock hot foot bath and we won't do the water. And then you don't have to take your shoes off. Then you'll just get the demonstration. Okay. And I'm looking for, okay. So before you sit down, Bobby, we're going to put down some blankets and stuff.
Mock or real?
Huh?
He's going real.
All right. He's going rogue on us. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to have Bhaskar come up here. You're going to give this. What we're going to do is we're going to take this blanket. What you're attempting to do is you're basically going to try to wrap them kind of close together. You're attempting to keep their heat in the body area. I'll explain more as we're doing it. So what I want you...
to take his sweatshirt off.
Yeah, go ahead and take your sweatshirt off.
The reason why is because we had too much.
And I want you to take this towel and figure out, I want you to wrap it so it drapes on this side of the table, the chair. Up.
Only the chair we're wrapping?
Yeah, well, no, we're not wrapping the chair, but we're putting it in front of the chair. So what we're going to do, all right, there we go. Now, let's put it out like so. And we want to leave enough on the back so that we can get this up around his neck, okay? And we don't need too high because we want it to, I'm going to say right there would be good. And we'll just pull that out there. And now before you sit down, Bobby's in a hurry. Bobby's looking forward to this.
The action man.
All right, I want you now to put the sheet in the same basic direction there. Just put it on top of this. What we are doing is we're going to warm him up, but he's going to sweat into this blanket in a hot foot bath, okay? If he were going to actually do this and really sweat, then we could put a piece of plastic in between the sheet and the blanket, and that would actually keep more heat in. So there are different degrees of how you would actually do a hot foot bath. So we're going to take right here, we're going to get this out here. We're going to put a couple of towels down on the floor. Karen, can you get for me the bag of ice out of the freezer?
When you want.
No, you don't have to put it out yet. You can just have them there, ready. We don't need them under. You can leave that there. That's fine.
Or just side you mean?
Yeah, just put them on the side because you'll need them in a minute. You can even leave it up there. That's fine. Okay. Now we're going to get this bucket and we're going to fill it full of hot water. And we're going to put it up to about, we're just far enough that it goes over his ankle. So you put that in so it'll just go over Bobby's ankle.
Now, is 1 foot going in or both?
Both, well, if you just want to do 1 foot, that's fine for the demonstration. Typically, you would do both feet.
Okay.
Now, before you go in, and what you're going to do is you're going to sit down. Now, you can put the hot in there, and we'll check the temperature. Bobby, are you struggling? We need to keep it under 102 for you? You might want to roll up your pant leg.
You want everything.
Listen, so that brings me to, Bobby said that's everything. Typically when you would do this, you would either be in like just your underwear, or you could even go swim trunks. You can even, Bobby here is going to stay with his pants here. 110? Oh, I think that's pretty good. Test it and see if that's okay for you, Bobby.
Pour more?
Yeah, we need a little bit more water.
Which one is?
No, that's tempered water, so that'll be okay. But it's going to cool it down a little bit.
Let me pour this more. And then we'll add this guy.
Now, when he's adding this water,
I want his feet.
you can move your. There you go. And then you would just swirl it around. Okay, I think that's it for a good. So what this is going to do, we're going to do this. This is going to be, instead of a 3-minute and 30 second, this is going to be for a full 20 minutes, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to wrap Bobby up.
20 minutes?
No, this is going to be, yeah, for 20. Now we're not doing this for a full 20 minutes. I'm just giving you an idea of what we would be doing. So we need this.
To go over his neck.
Oh yeah, okay, this is,
That's what I was pulling more.
all right. So let's do this real quick. And we get that down, it was just like the other one. Okay, now you can have a seat, Bobby. And now what we're going to do is we're going to wrap this around Bobby like this. And what we're going to attempt to do is when we come around here, is we're going to attempt to keep this out of the water. So we're going to feather it around like that. And you can pull that around Bobby there. And then we're going to do the same thing with the blanket.
The mummy.
Just like a mummy, that's right. We're mummifying Bobby. Now, let's bring that one around this side this way this time.
Is that to hold the heat in?
This is to hold the heat in, okay? Now, and in fact, what we're going to do, Bhaskar, if I can get you to hold this for a second. What we're going to do now is we're going to add, again, you see that we're keeping the head where it's exposed. Now, but what I want to do is I'm going to take this right here, and I'm going to have you lift your neck, Bobby. We're going to place this under the neck so that we can make sure that he doesn't. Now, I want to get my chip. Hold that. We'll get the chip. There you go. You can cap him off there. If you've been good, then you don't have to worry about the pinning, right? Okay. Now, we got a bucket here of cold water. And what we're going, I'm not going to actually do this to you, Bobby. I won't do that to you. So yeah, you notice you can't really use his hands in this. But what we would do is we would take this ice water and then we would apply this to his forehead, huh? I did not. Should I use the ice water? I guess I should. Let's do it. Okay. Let's rough Bobby up a little bit.
Do it. He said do it.
Okay.
He said do it.
Okay.
No, you won't. That's why we're on the floor.
Okay, Bhaskar. So now we're going to take this and we're going to get that in the ice water, just get it wet. And we're going to put it on his forehead. Now, when you're doing this, you're going to start sweating when you do this for 20 minutes. So you're going to need some hydration. You need a cup with a straw. And the reason you need a straw is because Bobby can't use his hands. So you have to give Bobby something to drink. There's some organic corn liquor in there if you can get to the bottom of it. Anyway, so.
You want it with ice or just the wet?
Just wet, that's good. Wring it out really well.
Squeeze it?
Squeeze it out, wring that thing out. Get it good and wring it out. And then we're gonna fold it like that, perfect. And we're gonna set it on Bobby's forehead. No, Bhaskar, what I need you to do, once you get that on there, go ahead, put it on. Then that's gonna help keep his head cool. Now you go over there and stand. And I'm gonna get down here and I'll smile and let's take a picture. Photo op. Now, so what you're going to do is for the next 20 minutes, you're going to take and keep an eye on this water here, okay? And so you're going to keep it at that 110, 112 degree range. What you are doing is you're actually physically taking the blood and you're pulling it from the forehead to the feet. So this is very helpful if you have a headache. People that have told us that have migraine headaches, this is something that is helpful for them because it's pulling that blood away from that area. Now, you have to be careful because somebody who has edema could have swollen feet when they come out of here. This is why you always need, when you're doing this therapy, you need to do this with somebody unless you've done this enough times you know yourself and you feel like comfortable that you could do this. So Bhaskar would add a little bit more hot water here. Now, we've got to our 20 minutes has been up. Bobby's been here. That's all you're doing this. You are doing this for 20 minutes. You're keeping this hot and warm, okay? Now, we're going to take and we're going to finish this therapy by simply unwrapping Bobby. So you can unwrap them.
You weren't in there that long, but you're starting to warm up, aren't you?
Yeah.
Right away you warm up.
Okay, and what's this? I'll take that and you can unfold the sheet. There you go. You can see the more that you would practice this, because you can see that there was a few things that we could have got the towel over a little bit better and stuff like that.
Where's the container for tip?
Now, we're not finished, so you can't leave, Bobby. But wait, there's more.
Gotta get the ice.
The cold is coming. They always work hand in hand, even though this is for 20 minutes. So what I'm going to do, no. We didn't win the football game. So now we have this second towel here for us, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to get down here to where Bobby's at. I'm going to pull this up just a little bit. Go ahead and put your feet out there. There you go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take this ice water right here. And I need you, no, leave the bucket there. Oh, that's fine. And then put your feet back up and kind of hold them out. And hold them out of the water. Hold them out of the water. There you go. And we're going to just kind of go like this.
That actually feels good.
Because he was hot. Now, we'll just take a towel that you got right there, Bhaskar, and we'll just dry his feet off.
Okay, he's done.
And he would be done.
Okay, time for the wine and the bread.
No, that's why I told him, where is my tip container?
That's right.
This is the new communion service.
We need to have tip container.
All right, we've made fun of it, but now let's talk about how, hydrotherapy is a way that you're helping and cleaning your body. Guess what? So is communion. When God says to wash you, it is actually a form, if you will, of hydrotherapy. We are actually in communion with God. Anyway, here, can I get this for you, Bobby? That's it, yeah, but all right. You okay? Everything good?
That's okay, we'll get Dave.
So this will take, another thing that this is good for people with high blood pressure, it'll help lower their blood pressure. Yeah. This is good for like people who have like pelvic cramps. It's good for,
Especially women who have cramps and those types of things, it will definitely.
and for the guys, it's good for the prostate, to help the prostate. So,
Someone just had a stroke. Someone just had a stroke.
had a stroke. Okay, so now you have to ask me what kind of condition are they in now?
They're in
Poor condition?
good condition,
Relatively good condition?
and they are on a low dose of blood pressure medication.
So is their blood pressure, is it regular, is it high, or is it low?
It's a little high.
It's a little high? They should be okay. I mean, if they're walking around and stuff like that, what you might want to do would be to start with a milder. So instead of starting like we did, Bobby, at 110, maybe we could go to like 102 or 104, and maybe do it for 15 minutes instead of 20 minutes, just to see how they respond. Yeah. And if they're good there, then you could bump it up a little bit. So yeah, as long as they're conscious and they're not, and if their blood pressure is not through the bottom of the floor, then this is something that usually can be very helpful. Very few side effects, but there are some.
I just
Are they
want to
taking a
add,
little dose of aspirin? Are they taking a little dose of aspirin?
I want to add that I think that this is probably one of the most versatile, and this is one of the easiest, that you have everything in your home.
Right.
It's probably one of the most versatile treatments you can do between, like Ron said, the headache, the menstrual cramps, getting the flu, if you just start feeling a cold, this is building the immune system. And so
So that 20
this
minutes.
kind of, and that's all it is, it's a 20-minute and then the ice cold. That is it. And so that's
Well,
why.
and when you circulate, you get oxygen.
Things, we demonstrate this, because it's the most versatile.
When you're getting
You
a
can
cold,
actually
you
feel the difference.
something coming on you, the hot foot back.
It felt,
You feel
like the
something.
circulation, you can really feel it.
And how long, well, you see you were probably in between 3 and 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, that little girl in that short amount of time, and I was like I was dumbfounded. I was like, but I felt like God had performed a miracle, because it wasn't a treatment. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just like this, but much milder than what we did even for you.
Normally, Bobby would have been in there for 20 minutes. Now, Sharon, you had a question?
Now, if you feel like you feel a cold or.
Coming on, this is something you can do. The only thing, and Ron mentioned this too, is that when you do a full treatment, after you're done, you really need to lay down and rest for a few moments. You know, give yourself 15, 20 minutes of just relaxing. Who doesn't want a little 15-minute snooze, right? So just do that. Because you really don't want to get too woozy. You can be pretty hot in there.
There would be one caveat to that though, and that is if a person can't hold their temperature. If a person, like sometimes elderly people, most often it's them that
Yeah, don't have them do them by themselves.
yeah, but if they can't hold their temperature, you might want to be a little bit more cautious too.
Sure.
Just tie them to the chair.
Just tie them to the chair.
This is coming from a medical professional.
What do you want?
The restraints.
Yes, the restraints that aren't restraints.
They're not restraints.
Restraints that aren't restraints.
No, like that's how we do the.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Sometimes you have to hold people up, use pillows and stuff on the chair. All right, any questions? We went
Exactly 9 o'clock.
chapters 5 and 6 tonight.
It would have been 20, yeah. We did the shorties, like, yeah, right. And with yours, you could probably go another 2 or 3 exchanges.
Yes.
You could do like 3 to 6
I would do
exchanges.
both too.
Yeah. But then you should have some relief because it's going to bring down the inflammation because the blood circulation is down here. Does anybody have any more questions for Ron? No.
Great job.
Tomorrow, we'll be doing more hydrotherapy. So we'll learn some more things, which especially also to that fomentation treatment that we did when we were sick and the one that we told you about for the person that was in the hospital with the ventilator. So,
Let's
without
pray.
further ado, you want to pray?
Let's pray. Our merciful God, we are thankful this evening for your many blessings. We are grateful that you have given us ways that when we can't get other help, that Heavenly Father, that we know that you're always there on our side and won't let us down. So Heavenly Father, we pray that as we are learning these things, listen, this is new and we all need to practice and to learn and to do better at these things. So Heavenly Father, we just pray that this will just encourage maybe a little bit of excitement. We'll go home, maybe do some things this evening and see how they work tomorrow. And we pray, Heavenly Father, that you will bless the people that are trying these things out tonight. May their experience be that of power. We pray, Heavenly Father, that you grant us these miracles because we know that you have told us in John 10:10 that you have come to give us life and life more abundantly. So we pray, Heavenly Father, that as we practice these, we're stepping out in faith and that you will honor our request. We thank you for hearing and answering our prayer. In the holy and the powerful name of Jesus we pray. Amen.